Hello. My name's Niall Campbell, and just wanted to say, first of all, welcome along to this presentation, which is about clinical hypnosis and its application to dental surgery. And thanks very much to Paul and also to Connor McClister as well, who I think organised me to speak. So thanks to them as well. So first of all, I'll just briefly give you an overview of who I am and I suppose why I'm talking to you. I'm a graduate of Queen's University there as of 2006, which seems like an awfully long time ago now, but there you go. I moved to Australia coming on 5 years now, and I've lived here ever since, bar a hiatus of about, I suppose, 7 or 8 months when I went off on a ski in France. But so the reason I'm saying that is because I'm now going to be a citizen fairly soon. After about 4 or 5 years of sort of permanent residency here, you can apply for citizenship. So probably here for the next for the foreseeable future anyway, and I'm loving it. I'm a private dentist with special interest in dental anxiety, and I've put here a hyphen because I do work at Preventacare, but we've also just recently bought a practice called Kalamunda Dental Care, and that's in Perth, which is in Western Australia, but up in the hills. So a really, really beautiful place if you're ever in this part of the world. A lot of lovely forest, state forest, that is worth a trip. I'm also a clinical tutor at the Oral Healthcare Centre in Western Australia, which is known by the acronym AQUA, and that's, I suppose, the equivalent to the School of Dentistry there, which I'm assuming is still at the Royal, and you're probably in one of those small lecture theatres just off the Collins Lab on the fourth floor, if I remember correctly. I also am a visiting clinician with the Royal Flying Doctors, and that's a lot of fun. Obviously, WA is a huge place. It's the size of continental Europe with no seas, so that sort of gives you an idea of the scale. And about 80% of the population live in the general metropolitan area in Perth and the southwest, the wine region. But up north is just, hundreds and hundreds of miles of nothing. So some really remote communities. Very interesting job because you deal with very different socioeconomic groups, the Aboriginal communities, but some of the poorest people in Australia, and also the oil and gas industry and the gold miners, so some of the richest people in Australia. So a mixed bag of implants and extractions. I'm also a director of Prime Hypnosis, which I suppose is the main reason why I'm talking to you today. It's a separate business that I run that has been a very enjoyable spin-off from dentistry, and I now work out of in private practice, seeing people for a whole wide variety of things, specialising in phobia and of course dental anxiety, but the work and the conditions are very varied, and makes it endlessly fascinating. Another thing as of late is I'm also a host of what's called the Mentality podcast, and the little tagline for that is Mentality, the show that helps the modern man achieve success from the inside out. What is that? It's a bit of a digression here, but we're going to have a mental health basically endemic. By 2020, it's going to be the World Health Organization's second most costly sort of group of pathologies after heart disease. So it's on its way, and men, young men definitely are going to be at the coal face with that. So this is a podcast to try and I suppose get at people about mental health issues in a fairly accessible and non sort of Freudian way. So that old style therapy. So check that out. We'll come back to that, but I put it up as well because for me it's been fantastically enjoyable, and also, if I'm honest, a really great way to network. So if there isn't currently one being done by a young dentist in the UK, whoever takes the time to actually put it together, and I can help you do that if you're so inclined, will literally never have to look for a job again, because you just sort of be on the radar of a lot of people. So that's a wee digression. Now, this slide here is just to address something that I like to always talk about before these sorts of I suppose communication skills type stuff. And it's what I think of as the elephant in the room. So, I mean, I'm obviously recording this, and I'm not there, so it's not live, but just as a show of hands, maybe for Paul there, whoever who's taking you, like people to put up their hand and be as honest as you can here. I think that communication skills are an integral part of being an excellent communicator, and all that entails is an integral part of being a dentist. And then put your hand up if you feel that a lot of the stuff that you're getting you just think is superfluous and is touchy-feely bullshit. So, put your hands up for obviously for being important, and not so important. Excuse my French, but we'll not call a spade a spade. I just like to come to a point because I felt both ways about this. I cringed at some of the things we had to learn as an undergraduate. It's a great course, but not all of it seemed relevant. And other times I lapped it up. But here's the home truth. Either way, regardless how you feel, you cannot do your best work because there's a very simple equation in the bottom of this slide. The work that you're doing now and are going to do in general practice, initially at least, is what someone has described as upside down watch work in a bucket of saliva and blood. And so it can sometimes feel like you're threading the eye of a needle, even looking through loops with magnification and brightly lit. It's hard enough at the best of times, technically. The last thing that you need is that plus this chap in the bottom left hand corner who's incredibly nervous there, because either way you can't do your best work. And what does that lead to? That leads to stressed out dentists, stressed out young dentists, bad quality work, and also less income and more complaints. That is the bottom line. I was once employed by a guy who worked in Perth here, and he said to me, what I want from you is, excuse the accent, but he said, I want good coin and now dramas. And basically, I didn't really understand what he meant, but he just wanted good quality work, which would make everyone's livelihood solid, and they didn't want any complaints via poor quality work. But to be honest, what most complaints come from is huge communication breakdown. So if you go for the bottom, if you look for good coin and no dramas, then you really have to engage with communication skills, either by outsourcing it or addressing it yourself. For more information on anything with regards to those first couple of slides, and also more specifically, moving to Australia, I'm more than happy to help out. I will provide you information if you hit me up on that email address at the bottom there. So we'll rifle on, because I know that you guys are probably had a long old day, but coming on to the objectives of this little talk. I mean, it's really a taster of what clinical hypnosis is. So we'll outline what clinical hypnosis is, and then just briefly give some current theories, an evidence base. But don't worry, we won't get too bogged down in that, because I really want to focus on stuff that you can practically use now at your stage as an undergraduate, and hopefully moving through to being a new graduate in the next couple of years. And again, as always, if you need more information, I'm here to help. But sorry, to go back to that, uses in dentistry, and then basic tips that you can start using now, and then those further resources if this has piqued your interest. So first of all, what is clinical hypnosis? Now there are 101 different terms for this, but it's for a lot of different sort of communication styles and different therapies, there's 101 definitions, and I often find the simplest one is often the most accurate. And it's defined by the American Psychological Association, very reputable organization, as a cooperative interaction in which the participant responds to the suggestion of the hypnotist. Now, that seems banal, but it's incredibly important to realize that is simply all it is. Hypnosis is a focused attention, usually on the, initially at least on the sound of the hypnotist's voice, at the expense of all other stimuli, and really the deepening subconscious effects of the suggestions which are given by the hypnotist. People always retain the ability to either accept or reject those suggestions, but of course we're assuming that they're given in a benevolent way. It's been sanctioned as an effective technique by the AMA, which is the American Medical Association, since the early 50s, and it's old hat in psychological circles now. So it's not something scary or new. In dentistry, obviously there aren't that many practitioners, but in the wider sort of health professional world, it's not all that strange. Now, you may or may not remember a guy called Kenny Craig, who was a character in Little Britain, which was that sort of spoof sketch show a couple of years ago, a few years ago now, I suppose. But he was your typical, sleazy stage hypnotist, and he'd say, "Look into my eyes, into the eyes, not around the eyes. Don't look around the eyes, into the eyes, not around the eyes. Look under the eyes. You're under." And that sort of parody of the sort of sleazy hack stage hypnotist. So it's very, very different from that. I mean, there are some similarities, of course, but it's not anything like that. At this point, I'd just like to answer the question, which is another elephant in the room, and that people think is, does it really work? Now, I mean, there is, as I said, I can furnish people with, reams and reams and reams of good quality randomized controlled trial studies and things like that, but for the purposes of a small introductory lecture, I'll just mention two things. And the first is that I have, obviously, in the course of my training, experienced it many times, and my major phobia from when I was young was a fear of water. Just terrified. I can now, but I couldn't really swim, and wasn't so bad on a pool, but just terrified of open water. And now this is a picture of me very recently in Australia. So I like to go wakeboarding, and you can see there it's in an estuary, so that would have been inconceivable for me to do if I hadn't addressed it through, and the only thing that got any traction was hypnosis. This is a video I'm going to show you of a chap called Mike Gow, who you may or may not have heard of. He's a private dentist working out of Glasgow primarily, and I forget the name of the clinic, the Berkeley Clinic in Glasgow, very high-end clinic. So he's a really nice guy, quite approachable, and this is from a documentary that he shot a while ago, and it's showing, well, it'll tell what shows, but this was one of the first times that I saw just how profound hypnosis could be, and when my skepticism, completely rescinded after this. So I'll just let it run, and then we can comment on it afterwards. I'm just gonna unplug the microphone so that you can hear.
That morning, Mike Gow is Mandy's dentist and hypnotherapist. That morning, Mandy had taken a couple of ibuprofen. I can tell you, they'd make a minimal difference to what you're about to see.
Perfect. Excellent. Good stuff. And I want you to give yourself that signal again, that anchor, okay? And I want you to re-access those positive feelings, the feeling relaxed and positive, okay?
Mandy's anchor, a near hand shape, seemed to centre off.
Today, the procedure that's happening is to improve the health, improve the function, improve the appearance of the body, isn't it? So for that reason, you'd be surprised by how easy you find the procedure today, because
Mike spent about half an hour helping Mandy to focus and suggesting that she shouldn't expect pain. Then, a different sort of hand signal. And suddenly, it all felt very real.
Just relaxing deeply into the chair, being tucked in, safe, to be entirely comfortable. One way of learning how to do this is to imagine a comfort dial, visualizing in your mind's eye now this comfort dial. You're very easily able just to turn the dial down, aren't you? You can take this pad in your hand and hold on to this pen. I want you to think about that dial now. Just write down the number that you can see and feel the comfort dial is at right now. That's right, a 0, completely comfortable.
If the number got to 6, Amanda would be given a dose of local anaesthetic.
Noticing just how far up in the mouth, the nose, the lip.
They were going to monitor Mandy's pulse throughout.
Numb as you feel.
So was I.
Pressure, you can write down another number there.
Before long, the dentist started to loosen the tooth. It was about to get grim.
0. You can zero in on the comfortable sensation and just write down another wee number there. A 0. Completely comfortable. Comfortable pressure. Enjoy relaxing on the beach.
While Mike was innocently talking about a beach, out came the first tooth.
Feeling relaxed and calm, just write down the number the dial is at right now. A 0.
How could she write a 0?
Comfortable sensations as you walk along the beach. Perhaps you have your shoes off and you can notice that the sand between your toes is wet, or whether the sand is dry and warm and fluffy. And as you feel the movement and the pressure, you can allow the altered sensations, the feelings of comfort. So turning the dial down, just writing down a wee number from there. That's 2, okay, turning that 2 down, because it's right to turn down the number 20. Just write down the number again now. Where's the dial at now? A 1, and you can turn the dial from a 2.
That was hard enough to watch, but then came the drill.
Quite satisfying feeling to know that you can control the sensation, choosing at any time just to write down which number feels right. A 1.
This was all taking a long time, and her pulse hadn't changed.
Drift away, separating
Mine sure had.
mind from body. Enjoying this perfect day at the beach, the perfect weather. Enjoying the way
I hoped Mandy was really on the beach.
off the sea. A 1.
I certainly wasn't.
Comfortable 1, because it's right for 1 to feel comfortable. And it's interesting that there are so many colours and so many different shades in these grains of sand. This continue right now.
I'm going
This is
to
real
skip it on
completely
just a little bit for time's sake, but
to come back into this room so that you can feel more and more alert, more and more awake. That's right, open your eyes, feel wide awake, alert. Fantastic, well done, very well done. Great. Good, so I shall set your chair up there. Your pulse is now higher than it's been the whole day.
Yeah. What's your pulse now?
It's up at 82 now.
It's loads of people in the room.
Yeah, 86. What was it actually of interest? What was the highest number you recorded? I think it was a 3.
I thought my pain would be way up high, do you know what I mean? I was quite surprised that it wasn't as sore as what I expected.
And what was the worst thing?
Just, I think we must have been getting kind of drilled in. It was just that kind of pressure feeling. Can I see?
Yes, you can, yes, you
Is it kind of messy?
can. No, not at all.
And do you remember everything?
Aye.
And
And then, I mean, you can hear things like going about, but I actually think you'd gone away. It's amazing.
and how does that feel now?
Good.
Yeah, it's deeply impressive. You look like you were in a more comfortable place than I was.
Yeah.
so there you go. So let me just plug that back in. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an insight into just how powerful a tool this is. And, you know, would you need to do that? No, of course not. But it just shows you that highly innervated upper anterior area that with a few ibuprofen, she can have, you know, 2 extractions and periotomes and immediately placed implants and be in total comfort. So whenever I saw that, I realized there really has to be something to this. To very briefly mention the current theories and evidence base, again, there are 4 sort of main areas, and it really comes down to what's called state versus non-state, and that means, you know, is there an actual marked state when people are in hypnosis versus other people think that it's more like a social role playing or what's called a socio-cognitive phenomenon. To be honest, that'll probably be answered in the future by fMRI scans and more sort of neuroscience, but so the jury is still out into exactly how it works, but you know the evidence is clearly there that there's something at work. So to come on more to things that I use it for, specifically in dentistry, and as I mentioned, I use it now privately for all sorts of things, but in the dental sphere, it's excellent for dental anxiety and phobia, needle phobia in particular. Also smoking. I mean, if you can help your clients, your patients quit smoking, then you've done them just an absolute world of service from their oral health point of view. Behavioral modification for low caries diet, an oral hygiene instruction, and the low caries diet overlaps with obviously you know, a low sugar diet, which is good if they're at risk of diabetes. Their doctor's happy about that. Psychogenic gag reflex, which is probably the bane of some of your lives when you go to do crowns on patients, and also that general feeling that people complain of a sort of claustrophobia when they have the rubber dam on. Conscious parafunction, so people bruxing during the day, not at night time, of course, because all that new evidence, links it to obstructive sleep apnea and being, totally unconscious, so beyond conscious control. Anyway, again, outside the scope of this talk, pain management. Now, of course, we want to do procedural stuff to stop the pain, but occasionally people have jaw pain, muscular pain, even when things are healing, after a dry socket, these sorts of things. You can manage pain either acutely or chronically and just help yourself out to be good at getting people out of pain with both your hands and your words. Time distortion, I use it regularly for root canal treatment, just when people aren't so much afraid but they get bored in long appointments. To just, you saw there how that patient wasn't sure how long it took, she seemed a bit disoriented. That's a very, very common experience for people to feel like it's been 5 minutes and it's really been about an hour and a half. So, things that you guys can start doing now. Okay, this is, as I say, just a little taster, and it's all, maybe it might seem a little bit just rinky-dink and just words, but I mean, you've seen what words can do there for that previous patient, and I found exactly the same thing. It's an incredibly powerful tool. So we'll come on to these in turn, but double binds, truisms, pacing and leading, and embedded suggestions. So double binds. Now the top ones here are what, if any of you have younger siblings or nieces and nephews, good parents know that they give the illusion of choice to the toddler. So they'll say things like, would you like to eat the left side of your dinner or the right side of your dinner first? And of course, it means you're eating your dinner. Do you want to sit quietly with the iPad or the colouring book? The implication is that you're going to sit quietly. We can do exactly the same thing in a very permissive way. So simple statements when people are in the surgery, to give them the illusion of choice. It's not strong-arming them, it's just improving their, modifying their behaviour in a way that is respectful to them. Would you like to relax with your coat on or off is both two things. It's a double bind because it implies that you're going to relax, and it's also what's called an embedded suggestion, which we'll come to. But if you just say to someone, relax, it doesn't work. But if you give them, would you like to relax, you can embed suggestions in other language. Again, with a cushion behind your lower back or one behind your head. Would you like me to do the fillings on the right or the left hand side today? Very useful with kids as well. That's treatment plan permitting, but it's all about getting people on board and giving them this illusion of choice, so that every movement towards being more relaxed, which is often the beginning of hypnosis, feels like it's their decision, whether it is truly or it isn't. Now, I've just forgot to, sorry, it's the top there, look up evidence sets from Yapko for you. Yapko is a very prominent author in hypnosis, and wanted to give you some of his what are called yes sets. But what is a yes set? Studies have proven that if you have people that are in the mode of saying yes several times in a row, then the statements that they cannot disagree with, like the sun sets every day, rivers run to the sea, night turns to day, these sorts of things, when people are ready to just automatically disagree with you, which is often the case as a dentist, if you give them several things that they cannot disagree with, or like, oh, that's fair enough, then you can almost ghost in suggestions that they then agree with. When you build this momentum of yes, people tend to say yes subconsciously to other things. So I've put a little list of stuff which is going to seem incredibly banal, but if you put this together, it really, really, really works and gets people on side. I call them corridor truisms, because yes sets are otherwise known as truisms. Things that are true, they just cannot be disagreed with. So you get people on side with that. I aim to get people to pretty much say yes subconsciously or to me with their words 10 to 20 times before we even approach any treatment, so that they have this momentum that they're not necessarily even aware of to cooperate. If you go out to get someone and you walk from the cons floor out to the waiting room, you can say to someone, Sophia, so hi, how are you? Did I pronounce it correctly? Is it Sophia? You know how it's pronounced, and you can take a punt. Yes. So you found us then. of course she found you, she's here, but you just really want to get people to say yes, to get them on side. Did you take the motorway? And you can have hits and misses, but you just want to build this momentum of people saying yes. And of course, the old weather is always a good one. Have a look out the window before you go out together and say, "Oh, so is it still raining? Is it cold? Still quite cold outside today?" Yes, Now these are all banal. I mean, there's only really one way to pronounce Sophia. She found you. She sat in the waiting room, and it's December in Northern Ireland. Of course, it's fucking raining. But the fact of the matter is that people just need this momentum to start saying yes. Now, compare the alternative. Just if you get people saying no all the time, then they're stonewalling you before you've even got them in the chair. And a meta-analysis of therapeutic rapport with doctors showed that compliance increased 62% if patients agreed, felt they had good rapport with their doctor. So that's a huge number. And if compliance for us, let's be honest, when you get out into the the sort of private sector, I suppose, that means people agreeing to treatment plans. So if you take just as a sort of an average, say an Aussie dentist, this is Aussie dollars now, bear in mind, but 100Ks, a year or whatever, multiply that by 1.62, that can make the difference in terms of people compliance by a significant amount of money. Now, I'm not saying this is why you're doing it. This is not scamming, but it's just simply to demonstrate the fact that you can be both ethical and also have people, agree with your treatment plans, because you're wanting the best for them, of course. So corridor truisms are incredibly useful. You continue on this truisms again, building this ahead of steam. Patient preparation. Utilize the negative. You can still get people to say yes when it's about things that they're not necessarily all that fond. So for example, I say to people a little joke, I'm sure there's 101 places you would rather be right now. Yes, of course there are. Are you a bit nervous? Yes. So again, it's almost using their own negativity against them for their own benefit. Things like in the medical history. So I see here you have asthma. You may very well know that already. They've ticked the box. Do you find the inhalers help? Yes. I mean, again, it's a completely banal. Who has asthma that doesn't find that inhalers help? It's. But again, you will be amazed by how people don't question these questions. They just simply say yes. People like saying yes. They want to say yes. They don't really want to disagree with you unless you give them due cause to do so. So again, the list is endless. Banality doesn't matter, but delivery does. It's very important to get behind the questions that you're asking. And as I said, I aim for a yes set, as I call it, of about 10 to 20 pre-procedure. Now, moving on to the procedural. So let's say the start of the majority of dental procedures is the local anaesthetic. So once I've built this momentum, and this is a statement that if your take-home message, I would like you to learn to say this in some shape or form, but the closer the better. Would you like to learn, so someone says, oh, I'm not looking forward to the needle, or some variation on that. Okay, would you like to learn a few tips that will make this the most comfortable numbing that you ever had? Yes, they're in that habit of saying yes, so they will say yes to that. Who wouldn't want to learn that? The point to note as well is that in there is also what's called an embedded suggestion, so the most comfortable numbing you've ever had. And you'll see that I use these simple terms, numbing instead of anaesthetic, because anaesthetic has too many sort of negative connotations, and let's be honest, some people don't really understand what it means. So simple language. Now, here's a little point to make. I did a little search for dentists in movies, and as was my suspicion, we are not well portrayed, guys, I'm afraid. So it doesn't matter how cool your Facebook post is, it doesn't matter how much of a hipster you are, it doesn't matter what you're up to. The general public think we are strange. You think of Ricky Gervais in Ghost Town, Steve Martin in Little Shop of Horrors, that guy whose name I forget in Blue Jasmine, Keanu Reeves in some atrocious movie about a dentist, where he's just this freaky guy, and then also Jennifer Aniston in Horrible Bosses. That's actually quite worth a look. She's crazy, but she's very hot in it. So basically what I'm saying is we are not perceived as normal. So get used to it. So you actually have more license to be a little bit more lateral than you would think. So people, it's not like if you start doing this sort of stuff, people are going to say, oh, you're a bit weird, dentist. They think you're weird anyway, so get over yourself. Another thing to note, sorry, but again, your perception gives you license, because if you've got friends who are doctors, I'm obviously talking specifically to the guys here, if they drop that in a bar and they're trying to pick up girls, this is sort of the reaction that they're going to get, okay? Now, the same cannot be said for the phrase, I'm a dentist, okay? So, sorry to break the bad news, but that is the, I don't want to look at Susan Boyle anymore. That is the take-home message. So, that you can look at that in a positive light or a negative light. Let's look at it in a positive light, where it gives us license to do things that you maybe wouldn't. No more Subo. So, as I mentioned before, that truism that leads you into giving the local anaesthetic, when you have someone and you're giving them a local anaesthetic, you have a captive audience if you're giving it correctly, and that is slowly, for several, a minute or two. So in that time, they cannot talk to you. You can give them suggestions, and they want to be relaxed. So this is your time to do the most hypnosis-y type stuff. I've given you very conversational type stuff, but these are called perpetual suggestions, pacing and leading. There's different names, and also embedded direct suggestions. Now, perpetual suggestions are one where one thing leads on to another, leads back to the first thing, and just continues to roll. So there's broken down into three. Number one, as you give the anaesthetic, and again, I would suggest learning this verbatim. Try it out. I guarantee you it will work. It has revolutionized the way that I sort of give anaesthetic and how much I need to give. Continue to breathe deeply. The deeper you breathe, the better you'll feel, and the better you'll feel, the deeper you'll breathe. And then the deeper you'll breathe, the better you'll feel, and you can see how that can just loop. Okay, so that's what that little sign indicates. You can smash through that a couple of times, and it honestly will not sound as weird as you think it will sound. Okay, people are expecting soothing tones. They cannot talk to you. Whatever you say that helps them to be more relaxed, they'll be very appreciative of, I guarantee you. So once you've said that a few times, you can then roll on to, and the deeper you breathe, and you can just continue to breathe deeply. Now, as you feel the numb moving gently through your gums, teeth, again, very simple language, it relaxes everything. It puts everything to sleep. Again, in bold here, that's an embedded suggestion. If you just say, now sleep, people understand to mean deepening, and again, that's beyond the scope of this talk, but we could do that in another talk if you ever wanted. It puts everything to sleep, and that helps the numb to move through the gums, and as you feel the numb moving gently through the gums, there's a certain rhyming, there's a certain cadence to this. It flows very nicely. Again, doesn't sound as weird as you think. You roll that through, and this will profoundly affect how quickly the patient experiences the paresthesia, moving into full workable numbness. It will save you having to give another IDB, I'm sure. And now it helps to imagine a numbness level from 0 to 10. Give the numbness a score out of 10, and as that number rises, the level of discomfort falls. Don't use the word pain. Never ever use the word pain. As the discomfort level drops, the numbness gets deeper and deeper now. Again, embedded suggestion. Continuing to breathe deeper now, and you can loop that back as you continue to breathe deeply. You can smash through this several times in the time it takes to give some local anaesthetic, and the person will be more relaxed and more numb than they otherwise would have been, and you will be known as the dentist who gives painless anaesthesia, and that will big time affect your bottom line. So sorry I've run on a bit. It's hard to run through stuff like this so quickly, but if you want more information, the best ways to get in touch with me are through Facebook at Prime Hypnosis. My Twitter handle is at Dr. Campbell, but to be honest, I don't really post on that very much. And again, you can check out the website at primehypnosis.com or info@primehypnosis.com for more specific information. So again, if you're interested in the podcast, I will be putting some downloads on there of what's called mindfulness and hypnosis and a few of the bigger buzzwords, which will overlap with this, and I might even put some specific dentist ones up, so I could let Paul know about that. To do it, you just simply go to the App Store, this little icon, download the podcast app, stick it on your phone, input Niall Campbell into the search, and simply click subscribe, and then you will just get the feed. There's a good few episodes now, but they'll be rolling them out probably once every fortnight or month. I'm also writing an ebook about phobia, and obviously there'll be a big overlap with dental anxiety and needle phobia. When I get I'm probably going to go away on holidays to Bali or something at the end of the year and just smash this out. So whenever it's done, I can obviously email you, but send an email to info@primehypnosis.com. I can put you on that list and you'll receive a free copy as a bit of a courtesy. Also free MP3 downloads and ways to automate your workflow, which I now use, a separate topic again. but you know, explanations of root canal treatments, things like that. Stick it on your iPad, show it to the patient while you write their notes. So just if you do sign up, I won't smash you with spam, and you will get relevant content. So all that's left to say is thank you very much for your attention. I hope you found it useful, and yeah, thanks very much, and hopefully I'll be back home in Ireland soon, and I would love to, if anyone's interested in extending this to a bit longer. I'm home twice a year usually. I would love to come in and chat to the students if you think that that would be something that would be of use to you.